reading is taken from St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 12, verses 13 to 21. The parable of the rich fool. A man in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide with me the property our father left us." Jesus answered him, "My friend, who gave me the right to judge or to divide the property between you two?" And he went on to say to them all, "Watch out and guard yourselves from every kind of greed, because a person's true life is not made up of the things he owns, no matter how rich he may be." Then Jesus told them this parable. There was once a rich man who had land which bore great crops. He began to think to himself, "I haven't anywhere to keep all my crops. What can I do? This is what I will do," he told himself. "I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, where I will store my corn and all my other goods. Then I will say to myself, 'Lucky man, you have all the good things you need for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and enjoy yourself.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night you will have to give up your life. Then who will get all these things you have kept for yourself?' And Jesus concluded, 'This is how it is with those who pile up riches for themselves, but are not rich in God's sight.'" Thanks be to God.
Thank you. So I'm going to start this reflection on the parable of the rich fool with a story that I found when I was researching. Malcolm Forbes was an American entrepreneur who is most well known as the publisher of Forbes magazine. He's also remembered for several sayings, and one that he repeated often is, "He who has the most toys wins." As you would expect from someone who said this, he lived an extravagant, flamboyant lifestyle. He spent millions or perhaps even billions on parties, travelling, yachts, aircraft, art, motorcycles, hot air balloons, and Fabergé eggs. Growing up, there was a popular line of clothing called No Fear. They had one T-shirt that corrected Malcolm's quote. They put on their T-shirt, "He who dies with the most toys still dies." The people working for the clothing company were considerably more biblical than Mr. Forbes. They recognised that regardless of how much a man has, he can't add a single hour to his span of life, as Jesus said. The man in today's parable is pronounced as a fool by God. The remarkable thing is that this person that God calls a fool, we might very often call a success. A fool in biblical language was not a description of mental ability, but of spiritual discernment. The questions that I would like us to consider today are, why did the Lord consider this man a fool? And in this undeniably rich community that we live in, how can we be sure that we're not also fools in God's eyes? So let's be honest. Does the rich man look like a fool? Not at all. He was an astute farmer and a successful businessman who accumulated considerable wealth. He demonstrated many important financial principles, such as not being wasteful. He said, "What shall I do since I have nowhere to store my crops?" Good point. Planning. He said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and I will build larger ones." Well, yes, he's going to need those if he's got more grain. Saving. He said, "There I will store all my grains and my goods." And preparing for the future. He said, I will say to myself, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Very prudent. You would be hard-pressed to find someone who seemed to handle money better than this man. Maybe especially for us here in Yorkshire, where thrift is valued and we are known for our deep pockets and our short arms. He might be applauded here. But God did not say to him, you have been a tremendous steward. What a great job you have done financially. Instead, as we know, God called him a fool. We spoke earlier with Kathy and we wrote down what we are all thankful for. The rich fool was thankful for his riches, for his surplus grain. It allowed him to rest easy. How fortunate are we to have those things that we are thankful for? They are our riches. Sometimes it's helpful to remind ourselves that they are riches so that we don't get complacent about them as the rich fool did, and we don't want to keep more. A while ago, I was gifted this journal, Find Gratitude and De-stress with simple daily exercises, in this 5-minute journal. Maybe someone was trying to tell me something at the time, I don't know. Well, let me tell you, it's a wonderful journal, available on Amazon or I'm sure in other providers. It's absolutely wonderful. Each week takes a theme and asks you questions to explore that theme. The other week, if I can find it, the theme was favourite places. And the question for day 1 was, what are your top 3 places in the whole world? Yeah, it almost, as for writing down what I'm thankful for, really took some searching. I'm very thankful, and one of the things I put down is I'm very thankful for the means to be able to travel and explore, and it's something that I love doing. But when I reflected on this question, my number 1 place that was my favourite place was home. No dramatic landscape, no exotic beach, no striking monument, but a place where I feel safe, relaxed, and loved. It's made me think about my home differently for the last few weeks. I'm thankful for it. It's one of my riches, and I really see it as a precious gift. I'm sure we all enjoy receiving gifts. I know I do. And to help us realise what we're thankful for and maybe see our riches as gifts, we're going to gift wrap them. So you may have noticed that in the at the edges of the Bible holder things, in the end of the pews are some. Kathy's holding some up. There are some brown flat pack boxes. Okay. So just if you can take a flat pack box and turn it into a box. It does work. I've tried it and I've practiced it. So it does work. So you take it and you maybe need to work the creases out a little bit. And then you take the side flaps, the big flap, and then you tuck in the bottom. How are we doing? Are we there? Great. Excellent. So once you've made your box, what I'd just like you to do is to pop into it your post-it notes, the things that you are thankful for. And now you have a reminder for you to take home, a symbol for yourself that they are your riches, that they are precious things that you value. But just recognizing what we're thankful for as our riches doesn't make us any better than the rich fool. In the last verse of the parable, we heard Jesus say, "This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." We need to be rich towards God, not be a rich fool. But what does that actually mean? So I used artificial intelligence on my computer to help me understand what it means. And just by typing it in a couple of seconds, my computer gave me many biblically referenced lists of things we should be doing to be rich towards God. And here are just a few of them. Recognizing God as the source, which means acknowledging that everything we have, including our wealth, is a gift from God and not solely a result of our own efforts. Using possessions for good and practicing generosity, which is being rich towards God, involves using our resources, our time, our talents to serve Him and others, rather than accumulating them for ourselves. Prioritizing our spiritual wealth, which means valuing spiritual blessings and eternal rewards over material possessions and worldly comforts. And living with eternity in mind. It involves considering the impact of our choices on our eternal destiny and striving to lay up treasures in heaven rather than on earth. In essence, being rich towards God is about aligning our lives with God's will, recognizing His blessings, and using what we're thankful for to make a positive impact on the world both now and forever. And when we understand this, we can see what was wrong with the rich man's plans and why he was a fool. What was wrong was that he said "I" 6 times and "my" 5 times in just 3 verses of that Bible reading that we heard. He failed to think about anybody else. There's no mention of a wife, of kids, employees, maybe giving them a bonus after they've got all that grain in, friends, neighbours, or God. He valued himself. What was important to him was money and pleasure. He was unbelievably selfish. There's not a hint in Jesus' parable that he wanted to share anything out of his abundance with other people. For him, charity was not an option. All he could think about was how he could keep everything he had earned. So it's good that we value what we're grateful for and we see them as riches, but they're no good sat in a box. Being rich towards God means sharing our riches with others. I wonder what you can share. Sharing our riches shouldn't be a chore, but a joy. I mentioned earlier that I'm thankful for my home, and my home is one of the things that I put on my little post-its. But I'm happiest in my home when it's shared. When the kids come home, or my parents or my friends come round and we sit round the kitchen table for hours catching up or putting the world to rights. In fact, my favourite day in our home this year was when we ended the Chinstep walk there. The conversation and the sharing with 20 fellow walkers and friends was a real blessing. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure you can all think of your own examples of how you're already sharing your riches and what you're thankful for. However, is there more you can do? One of my post-it notes was friendship. I value and treasure the friends that I have. But if I'm really honest, I'm probably not the best friend. When I thought about it recently, I'm quite passive when it comes to my friendships. I tend to wait to be invited out rather than do the inviting. I tend to reply to my friends' texts rather than sending the first text to say, "How are you?" I don't even have the excuse of being too busy with work anymore. I realise that I need to make more of an effort. I'm very thankful to have these people in my life, and I know I can do more. And I also realise that there's a difference between having friends and being a friend. How can I be a true friend? So just please think about how you can share your riches to appreciate their true value to you, to others, and for God. But I want to finish this reflection by going back to Darren and his family. I've watched the video several times over the last few months, and what has struck me time and time again is, and I've grappled for the right word, but is the grace. Thrust into a situation where Darren and his family, and believe me, for those who are on our prayer circle, you know, what we saw there is just a snapshot of what is going on in that family right now. But, you know, I'm sure that for Darren and his family, if they were writing on their hearts, their health has literally been torn up. Literally been torn up. And yet, they remain so graceful. We would completely understand if Darren in that video sounded angry, sounded bitter, or even downright furious at what he's lost. But he didn't sound like that, did he? The whole family make the most of what they have. For example, the kids liking the fact that Dad's at home more and taking advantage of a good day to venture to the cafe. They deal with the situation with such grace. Darren may not be able to nurse in the community at the moment or be an active counsellor at the moment, but he's still sharing his gifts and making a positive impact on the world by his attitude. Courageously letting cameras into his family's life to raise awareness of long COVID has helped many others. You only need to read the comments under the video if you go and find it on YouTube to see that there are many others who suffer in the same way and who are so thankful for Darren highlighting the illness. It's given them hope and helped them to feel less alone. Darren and his family have had to reevaluate their priorities and consider what truly matters in life. They are not rich fools at all. Their richness is in grace and compassion, which is far more valuable than anything material. So I just hope this morning we've all been encouraged to reflect on what our priorities are and what we're truly thankful for in our lives. And not only that, but that we can be generous and we can share our riches with others. After all, our faith in God is our greatest treasure, and we want to live a life that reflects his generosity to us. Amen. And now we're going to continue our worship by singing hymn number 395, Spirit of the Living God. And we're going to sing it twice.